welcome everyone tonight. We're being broadcast live on Channel 8 and streamed live on the Town of Mashpee website, https://www.mashpeema.gov/channel/8. It's 8 now, not 18. We're being videoed and recorded tonight. We will have public comment on any issues related to the agenda items after the second public hearing, which is Pleasantwood Homes LLC. And after the board member committee reports, I'll entertain public comment on any other subject that you feel is relevant to what we do here.
When?
After, are you asking after? After the board member committee reports.
Okay, so I don't know when that is. I thought it would be at the beginning of the meeting.
Well, I don't have it. I'm doing the agenda items first, comment after the agenda items, and then at the end of, after the committee reports, I'm doing any other.
So I wanted to speak before there's the discussion of Willabend.
Well, you can speak after the agenda. That is on the agenda.
Okay, Karen, I'm not understanding what you're telling me. Perhaps
me
Evan
try?
could help me understand.
I can explain it to you. We have 2 A&Rs and we have 3 public hearings. After the public hearing, we can have public comment on the agenda, whatever was said. So it's going
I
to,
thought it was going to be at the beginning of the meeting.
No, it's
look,
not.
I can do it wherever I want, and this is the best way.
Okay, so the most important thing for me to tell you now is I'm not well, okay? So I can't sit through an entire meeting. I did explain this to people, but I have health problems and I can't stay here.
It's
So
not an entire meeting, Wendy. This is going to be probably quite short, because I think we have some
Evan, can you
continuances
explain this?
tonight.
May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Wendy, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 matters on the agenda that'll be relatively brief, that come prior to new business. The chair's intention is to open public comment at the completion of those 4 items that are scheduled on the agenda,
But before Willabend is discussed.
prior to the Willabend
Okay,
discussion.
thank you, Evan.
Okay. So could we all stand for the pledge allegiance of the flag if we're able? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Approval, review of minutes, the meeting minutes from September 6, 2023. Does anyone have any changes or edits? Hearing none, I take a motion to accept the minutes of September 6, 2023 as presented.
So be.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous? Who are we
So
missing? We're
Michael,
missing
you
Dale.
abstained?
I did.
Yeah, okay. I just heard it very softly. So
Who's
I wanted to make
abstain-
sure the secretary heard it, sorry.
Maybe I didn't hear it. What was that?
He abstained because he wasn't here,
Okay,
and we don't need him to vote. 'cause
Okay.
It was 3 yes.
all right. Okay, we have 2 A&Rs this evening. First one is, the applicant is Southworth Mashpee Properties LLC, location 2275 Quiniquisette Avenue, Mashpee, Mass. Assessors map 69. Let me read the, oh, there's no, yeah. The purpose of the A&R is to divide 275 Quiniquisette into 3 A&R lots. That's approval not required. Lot 2 has an existing single-family dwelling and is proposed to be demolished. Evan, are there any procedural or application deficiencies with the packet here on that?
The planning department received the requisite fees. It received the notice of application of filing. It received the requisite number of plans, including the Mylar. I don't know if there's anyone here representing the application today. There were, the lot area of the lot shown on the plan are conforming in accordance with the zoning bylaw. There are dimensional strings on the frontage of each of the three lots that don't clearly indicate that each lot has 150 feet of frontage as required, so I think Mary has actually recognized this and is asking Ed to kind of take a look at that.
I see one here. Down,
You have 21 days to act on the date of filing of an A&R. That would be my only outstanding question, would be that the frontage is adequate for each lot shown on the plan.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
The lot that has 141 feet, I don't know what, I can't see too good, but what's that easement? Is that an easement, and is that counted in to give them the 150 feet?
Dennis, you're asking me about this?
Yeah.
That would be a proposed driveway access.
But, so is that counted for that lot to give them the 150 feet, right?
I think it technically would.
So I don't know where that 145, where the points go to. Does it go from there to the first line on the driveway, or does it go all the way to the property line?
That's what that's unclear to me, based on the way the plan is presented.
Ed, you see what I'm saying?
So no, I don't, sorry, Dennis. Go ahead.
I'll come up there.
Show me what you're talking about.
Okay. The property line here is 100, I can't really see, but it's 141 or 145. Is that from this point?
No.
So that goes,
That's what you're missing. So each lot is conforming, I just checked.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, thank
That's
you.
what I was, that's what I was
It
thinking.
exceeds 150 feet.
Yeah, because I was adding that
The
on.
nomenclature, ironically by Mr. Charles Rowley,
That's really right.
PLS, the nomenclature is 143 feet from that point to that point.
Okay.
Plus the arc length of 35.67 feet. from
Yeah.
that point to the lot corner.
I couldn't see those numbers, that's why I was
Again, the
confused.
arc length from here to here, then the straight line length of 149 feet, 0.7 feet here. So you have to add the two.
Oh, the R,
So the
okay,
R is radius.
okay.
The A is the arc length from here. Many times it's an L length, they just use an L.
Right.
Okay.
But this,
That's more the common procedure that I would use, okay? But the radius is the radius of that arc. So it's a long
That
ways
goes
away,
away.
right? But it's a very, 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 it almost looks like a straight line, that's why it's 704 feet of an arc. But from here to here is a straight line.
Yeah.
There's the straight line bearing. From here to here is a straight line, there's the straight line bearing. right?
Okay,
So from here to here is a straight line, and there's a straight line bearing, but where there's not, there's an arc length, arc, radius, and an arc length.
all right,
okay,
I got it.
all right.
Yeah.
So with the confirmation that the lots have the adequate frontage and the appropriate land area, I would suggest that the plan as submitted is entitled to endorsement as approval not required.
So basically, Willow Bend has the right, it's by right to build these three houses, and it meets the criteria, adequate land area, 150 feet of frontage on the street.
That's correct. For endorsement of an A&R to create A&R lots, the planning board is only certifying that there's adequate frontage and the adequate land area in accordance with the zoning bylaw.
And access.
And adequate access on a.
Adequate from
On a
the
street.
Quiniquisette.
All of the frontage obtained is on the public way of Quiniquisette. So
And
again,
this has to all be on upland land.
well, you'll note in each lot, any area of a lot that is wetland cannot contribute towards the overall lot area. So you'll notice for lots 1, 2, and 3, the plan delineates the portion of the lot that is wetland and the portion of the lot that is upland. Each of the lots shows more than 1 acre of upland land area.
Okay, so may I have a motion to endorse the,
Wait,
you have any questions?
I can't really see this, where it says planning board, where we sign it. On the bottom, that says this is not confirming it's a buildable lot, right?
Yes, no
Okay.
determination of compliance with the zoning ordinance requirements
I
has been
couldn't
made or
read it.
intended by the
Has
above
been made.
endorsement. So again, just land area, frontage, and adequate access.
Are there any other questions from the board? Okay. May I have a motion to endorse the Southworth Mashpee Properties LLC?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Good.
Okay. The next one is the estate of Jacques Fresco. If his relatives are here, I apologize because I did trespass on that property. I was very curious to see it. It's a beautiful property.
You want it.
So let me see here. The applicant is the estate of Jacques Fresco, 3 Santuit Lane, Mashpee, Mass. Assessors map 30, parcel 15. The purpose of the request is to rectify an existing encroachment of the
Want a big
subject
one?
property on town of Mashpee conservation lands. The plan proposes to divide the subject lot into 2 parcels, 1 and 2, 0, I don't know what this means, Evan, 0 Santuit Lane. Is that a typo?
Nope, that's the address of the conservation land
Of the
that it's
conservation.
proposing a swap with.
Perfect. Map 30, parcel 19, is town of Mashpee conservation land proposed to be divided into 2 parcels, 3 and 4. Parcel 1 will be conveyed to the town of Mashpee, and parcel 3 will be conveyed to the estate of Jacques Fresco. Parcels 2 and 4 will be merged to create a new building lot, 26A, as shown on the plan. Are the documents all attached as required, Evan?
Yes, applicant submitted the requisite number of plans as well as the required fees and application forms. Also, just for your benefit, there's a letter from Attorney Brian Wall in your packet that outlines the nature of the request.
And I think is this quitclaim deed from Jacques R. Fresco and Rosalie Fresco? This is newly added to the packet? Because I don't think I got that in the original.
If you didn't get it in your hard copy packet, it was probably just an error, Karen.
Okay.
That came alongside the rest of the file.
Okay. So, would you like to address the board?
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board. I don't really have much to add. For the record, my name is Brian Wall. I represent the property owners. And I would simply say that this is an attempt to correct a problem. The owners became advanced in their age and were doing some estate planning and discovered that their house actually encroaches upon land owned by the town of Mashpee. And we've been to the Board of Selectmen, the Conservation Commission. They've all approved of this transfer, and actually town meeting has voted in favor of it. And there's special legislation pending before the legislature right now to approve it because of the conservation land. So we would respectfully ask the board to approve this, and it's basically fixing a problem for my clients and for the town of Mashpee.
So it's, as you call it, a land swap, 2,940 square feet to the town and 2,940 square feet to the estate.
It's a precise swap, one way, to the other.
Yeah.
And moreover, the land that the town is getting actually has some wetlands on it, so there's some current privately owned land that's being transferred into conservation, so there's an equal swap square footage-wise and a benefit to the town to protect the wetland.
Very smart. Evan, do you have anything else to add to this?
Nothing else to add, other than that I would recommend endorsement as approval not required.
Does the board have any questions?
No, I have none.
Okay. May I have a motion to endorse this as an A&R plan to build, to divide the lots into 2 parcels?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think you should sign, because I want to give this to Brian to record.
Okay, we gotta open up a public hearing.
Brian will wait for that.
Yeah. I wish all my cases were this long.
You all have to sign this, right?
Thanks.
We should sign.
Yeah.
Oh, they're on the floor.
Will you come up?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay. Up to date.
The date is what?
20th?
9/20.
August 8th.
Karen, you go first. And Karen, do that one, hon.
Oh, another one?
Okay. second line. Karen goes on the first. So, yeah.
That's correct. Correct, and then I'll file the plan in the town. I believe that's everybody. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
You see it, Brian?
Thank you, everyone.
I gotta go.
The time is 7:15, past our public hearing time for Marcello Malegny, Forestdale Road LLC. I open the public hearing of the applicant. Read the planning board public hearing notice. Pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81T, and the Mashpee Rules and Regulations governing the subdivision of land, the Mashpee Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, April 6, 2022, at 7:20 PM in the Wacoit Room at the Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North, to consider an application by Marcello Malegny of 80 Airport Road, Hyannis, Mass. 02601, for approval of 9-lot definitive subdivision plan of land consisting of approximately 18.05 acres located on Main Street, that's Route 130, between Nicoletta's Way and Echo Road, and identified on the Mashpee Assessor's map as map 26, block 6. This lot proposed for subdivision is within the C3 Limited Commercial District, the I1 Industrial District, and the R5 Residential District. Plans may be reviewed in the office of the town clerk or town planner at Mashpee Town Hall, submitted by the then-chair John Falone of the Mashpee Planning Board.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Attorney Christopher Corain. I'm here tonight to request a continuance of this meeting to your next available, which I think is October 18th. We're still working with we've been in contact with the Cape Cod Commission, and we're working with them to get the approvals, because we need their approvals on the transfer. They need to review that. Counsel for the commission needs to review all that information. So they just need to get through their approval process before I can.
Did you get any answer from them? Did you call them?
I've been email with Jordan, so we've been in contact. I know town planner's also been emailing with her as well, so we have been in contact.
Okay, we just need a time on October 18th.
I have to really think
Can I
about it.
ask a question? Are you gonna have to have an A&R
Yes,
done?
yes.
Will we have time to do that before the 18th? Just because the 18th, we have a ton of stuff on.
Well, if the board would prefer, when's your next, November?
We target the 18th for the A&R.
November 1 would be the one after that.
Okay, I agree with Mary. Let's target October 18th for the A&R and November 1st for the,
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
I think
Good
that makes
idea.
sense, especially if you have a big agenda.
Yeah.
There's nothing currently on your November 1st agenda.
And then I would just ask, as part of any continuation, that the board, extend any decision deadlines that, they need to do. So I don't want the board to miss that.
Any comments further?
Should we extend it 90 days? Our decision?
It would be
It'd be
beneficial.
wise, right?
It would be wise.
Yeah.
Okay, so I make a motion that we continue this to November 1st at 7:10 and add a 90-day extension.
On the time for the board to make it a deterrent or vote on the application.
Okay,
So be,
Okay.
okay,
so be.
did you, so be,
I made the motion.
I second.
Okay.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes.
And so who's sitting on that? Rob, are you sitting on that one?
Since it's a definitive
Oh,
plan,
it
you
doesn't
only
matter.
need 3 votes.
Sorry,
You need
doesn't
3
matter.
sitting members.
Okay.
Okay, the next one is 7:20, public hearing.
Perfect.
Pleasantwood Homes LLC, continued from 8/16/2023. Mashpee notice, public hearing notice. Pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 9, the Mashpee zoning bylaws, 174-24, paren C, close paren, and 174-47, the Mashpee Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, August 16, 2023, at 7:10 PM in the Wacoit Meeting Room at the Mashpee Town Hall at 16 Great Neck Road North, Mashpee, Mass. 02649, to consider an application made by Pleasantwood Homes LLC for approval of a special permit for a cluster subdivision of property addressed at 20 Tudor Terrace, Assessors Map 29, Parcel 198. The applicant proposes to divide the subject parcel comprised of approximately 6.024 acres into 3 building lots for a single-family home construction while preserving 3.021 acres as protected open space. The plans and submitted application can be viewed in the office of the town clerk or the town planner, submitted by Karen D. Faulkner, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Attorney Christopher Crane for the applicant. I am requesting a continuance of this application to the next available meeting at my client's request. There was some information that I think was pretty minor from Ed Pesci's, but our engineer still needs to work through that and get it on the plan and review that with the client, so.
Okay, so are you looking at October 18th? Is that a busy one?
October 18th, if I remember correctly, is the day both Southworth petitions come back before the board.
So you want to do it November 1?
That's fine.
November 1, and what time did we do the other one?
7:10.
7:10.
So this would be 7:20.
So 7:20. Okay,
You're feeling that the project firm is going to accept all of the engineers?
I suspect that he will, yes.
Okay. And that November 1st would be enough time for them to incorporate everything into the plan?
Yes, that's the goal.
okay.
Make a motion.
Make a motion
to continue this to November
First.
1st, 7:20?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Do we have
Passed.
to extend any other decision?
I talked to town planner about that. He thinks we're still within the relevant timeframes, but if the board feels comfortable that to extend another 60 days and
I have to make a motion to extend.
Sorry, Mary, just the hearing you're continuing now is the special permit proceeding that doesn't require any extension, but for the definitive plan filing, you could entertain an extension.
Which is at 7:25.
Okay, so the next one is, can I go now? It's not quite 7:25. I have to wait?
Wait 3 minutes.
Yeah, you have to.
Okay. Wendy, is your speech more than 3 minutes?
I would wait, Madam Chair.
Yeah, let's do reports.
Let's do what?
Reports.
Okay.
Cape Cod Commission. So they have.
Anything?
Yep, they're having another round of stakeholder meetings on their regional housing policy. It's September 27th at the county. And from what my unofficial polling of invitees is, a lot of people, I think about 50% of the people that have been invited cannot attend. So if you're one of those people, and I know Evan is, and Arden and myself, when you reply, make a note, please repeat. Maybe they don't have to reschedule the whole thing, but repeat it. And we'll keep you updated on when something is available for the public to comment on.
Community preservation?
Oh, we had our public hearing last week, and 10 people showed up, and we were thrilled. We had about, I would say, 35 solid minutes of public testimony. And I forgot to give you guys the PowerPoint, sorry, I'll bring it next time. And we have a big, long Excel sheet listing every single activity that the program has funded since 2005, and it's really impressive, so I'll bring that as well. Our chair is here, Arden Cadron, and I just want to give her a little bit of a shout out. She has really, because we meet monthly, and because she has so much expertise in community development, the community preservation program is in really good shape, and I love it more than ever.
Okay, we'll stop here and pick up with design review. Wendy, you want to come up
Oh,
and
no,
speak?
you have to do the
You do the public
725.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, we didn't do the 725, the definitive subdivision. Excuse me, Mr. Corain.
That's okay.
I opened the public hearing at 7:25 of Pleasantwood Homes, continued from 8/16/2023. Public hearing notice pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81T, and the Mashpee Rules and Regulations governing the subdivision of land. The Mashpee Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, August 16, 2023, at 7:15 PM in the Wacoit Meeting Room at the Mashpee Town Hall at 16 Great Neck Road North, Mashpee, Mass. 02649, to consider an application made by Pleasantwood Homes LLC for approval of a definitive subdivision plan of land that would create 3 new 40,000 square feet building lots by dividing the 6.024 acres subject property addressed as 20 Tudor Terrace, Assessors Map 29, Parcel 198. The remaining land area totaling approximately 3.021 acres is proposed for open space as required by Mashpee zoning bylaw. The 3 lots proposed obtain frontage via an extension of the existing public way called Tudor Terrace. Plans may be reviewed in the office of the town clerk or the town planner at Mashpee Town Hall, submitted by Karen D. Faulkner, Chair, Mashpee Planning Board.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Again, for the record, Attorney Christopher Corain, requesting a continuance to your November 1st meeting, and probably would make sense to extend the timeframe for the board to make a decision for 90 days.
So I make a motion that we continue this meeting, this public hearing to 7:25 on November 1st, and to extend the time that the planning board needs to make a decision by 90 days.
So, second.
All those in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Great. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you. Now,
It's
Wendy.
easier when you come. I'm sorry,
No,
I
agree.
know.
I agree. That's okay. Thank you.
Are we putting that on the 18th as well?
Say it again.
Are we putting that one on the 18th as well? I can just continue.
That's the first.
The 1st of November.
Both of them on the 1st? So you know what's going to happen. I'm going to be working on the revision letter. I didn't see a need to. Well, someone else can, we don't.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
As I said earlier, I'm not feeling very well, so my voice might be a little wobbly, but I'm here because I feel very strongly about this issue. I prefer not to have to be here. Let me introduce myself to you. As most of you know, I'm Wendy Williams, a 35-year Mashpee resident, and I live on Simons Narrows Road. I'm a lifelong investigative reporter and have won many prizes for my investigative work. Aside from being prize-winning, much of my work has been exceptionally effective. I'm quite proud of my accomplishments in that area and would be happy to talk with anyone afterwards who wants to know more about my work in that area. I'm also a highly successful investigative science author. My work has been featured in outlets that range from the Diane Rehm Show, where I debated Bobby Kennedy Jr., to the Jon Stewart Show, where I showed Jason Jones the Kennedy Compound, to excellent book reviews from the world's 2 top science journals, Science and Nature, and to, of course, the usual reviews from the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Washington Post, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Many local people have recently asked me one particular question. If you've lived in Mashpee for 35 years and no one knew you were here, why are you suddenly emerging now? The answer is simple. I'm working on my next book, The Last Great Wildlife Show. This book asks the question, how do we get into this mess? And what do we do to solve the problem? I mean the mess worldwide, but where better to start and end the book than right here in Mashpee, a hotspot of environmental degradation if ever there was one. We're not Tom's River yet, but we sure are heading in that direction. So for the past 3 years, I've been watching the town very, very, very closely. I do not like what I've seen. There are a few bright spots, of course, but basically this town has been railroaded ever since the Pilgrims purgatoried the Wampanoag people way back in 1620. This evening, I'm here to speak about Willow Bend Golf Course's recent shocking, stunning, arrogant, dumbfounding, stupefying, jaw-dropping, unimaginable, horrifying, and just plain disgusting proposal to build 14 luxury units on 5 acres of our shoreline in wetland areas, just when the low and middle income people of this town are struggling to pay for a sewer in order to try to deal with the mess that the developers have already made. And sometimes people in this town are struggling just to find a starter house to live in. Do we need luxury houses? I don't think so. Joe Deitch, Jack Mack, Troy Miller, etc. What are you, brain dead? Why would we agree to allow you to build more super expensive crap in our little town and then have to pay even more to clean up the waters because of the mess you've caused? Why would we do that? Quickly, a deep history of Willow Bend, because many of you don't know it. This is not your father's Oldsmobile. This is not Willow Bend as it started in 1986. The land on which this egregious golf course now sits has gone through a sad history of deep financial problems and outright failures, which tells us, by the way, that this project was a no-good, terrible, very bad idea right from the very start. First, Daniel C. Hofstetter bought the land and tried to build a golf course condominium situation. This was a case of big dreams, small brains. This is a private community concept, Dan told the New York Times, with the snob appeal, if you will, of limited membership. Okay, just what Mashpee needs. What a joke. Of course, the joke was on this bozo since he failed miserably. The project landed back in bank hands. A bank rep explained to the New York Times, the bank owns it today because the developers originally priced its residential lots and condominiums too high. The land has been plagued with exactly this problem ever since. Willow Bend has just never been the financial success that these rich flim-flam artists claimed it was. The land was taken over by the government and sold at auction to Paul Fireman. Paul was anything but a flim-flam artist, unless you consider the PR-based proliferation of disposable athletic shoes and environmental horror show to be flim-flam. But at least Fireman wasn't out to just screw Mashpee. Scuttlebutt has it that Paul had tried to join an exclusive Osterville club, but had been refused on the grounds of he was Jewish, and so Paul vowed to create something better over here in our little town. I have no idea if that rumor was true, but at least Paul seems to have had some sense of social responsibility. He and a fellow called David Southworth began running the project. Regardless of good intentions, which tried to convince high-end buyers that owning a home in Willow Bend would provide them with status, failed. Status, come on, this isn't the Hamptons. Who are you kidding? Fireman withdrew, Southworth stayed. Fast forward to the current situation. Southworth bit the poisoned apple. He drank the Kool-Aid. He allowed the fox into the henhouse. He allowed Joe Deitch, D-E-I-T-C-H, to invest. Uh-oh. Joe is a flim-flam artist extraordinaire. He is a gazillionaire who's taken the art of PR hype to its highest level. As a journalist, my favorite flim-flammery from Joe is this, his book, Elevate, An Essential Guide to Life. Apparently, that's the title of his so-called best-selling book. He feels that since he has made millions manipulating
financial markets. He is thus the anointed one and qualified to tell others how they should live their lives. One of the Amazon comments about Joe's alleged book, nothing new, I'm trying to finish, but. So there you have it. In the words of one of my favorite authors, and so it goes. That title is so arrogant that it reminds me of someone else publishing a blog called What I Am Thinking, as if anyone cared. So on with our story. Deitch pushed Southworth out in 2020. This was a very nasty, very bitter breakup. Here's what Boston Mag said at the time. Rumors about the shakeup have been flying among the chatty, deep-pocketed members and residents of the posh community. Boston Mag means Willowbend. With some whispering to Boston, that's a self-reference to them as a magazine, that they feared the worst, that Southworth, who many have known for decades, was being forced out against his will. The article went on to say that the golf course crowd worried that Deitch would turn the place into a dog park, or worse, Krupalo. Actually, for the record, I'd love to have Krupalo down here, Om Shanti Om. With Southworth gone from the power center, apparently he still lives in Willowbend, Deitch went to town. The company, for the last several years, have been trying to milk every last penny out of that business before they offload it to some unsuspecting schmuck. Thus, their outrageous request to build 14 nonsense houses on 5 acres of land, including our precious wetland, and the taxpayers be damned. To sum up, dear Joe Deitch, we are not your babysitters. You acquired a property with a complicated history that includes obligations connected to a signed document that goes all the way back to 1986. Sorry if you didn't read the document clearly before you signed on the dotted line, but that's your problem, not ours. 2, you advertised these 14 properties as for sale long before you had permission to do so. You had not gone through the permitting process, and yet you tried to sell these houses. That's like writing a book which you claim is a bestseller that tells people how to elevate themselves in their life. It's a bunch of flim-flam nonsense. I handed out evidence of this advertising hogwash to this board several months ago. Bunch of malarkey. If I were a potential homeowner who had given you money for one of these properties, I would probably be consulting an attorney about whether I could sue for fraud or not. The July 31st letter looks like a threat to me. Here's the deal. Mashpee is tired of being overrun by rich flim-flam artists. No matter what you do, this development is never going to stroke your ego the way you think it should be stroked. So why not just go away? People have tried for 50 years to make out that Queen Elizabeth herself would have loved to live in Willowbend, and yet she never showed up, bless her heart. That PR claptrap has failed for nearly 50 years. Take a lesson from poor old Dan Hofstetter, who sadly is now deceased. Cut your losses and ride out into the sunset. In the event that you, Joe Deitch, do not just go away, I, as a private citizen, suggest that the town consider legal action. Joe Deitch's Willowbend is in violation of the special permit and ought to be prosecuted. Finally, we all know that the best and highest use of that 5 acres of land is that it should be a public park. It should be named the Vern Pocknet Forest Preserve, and it should memorialize the Wampanoag people whose land, after all, this really is. I'd like to take a couple of extra minutes here to comment. First, thank you very much to Mary Wagon. Mary mentioned that Art and Cadron had done a good job with the Community Preservation Committee, but in fact, it was Mary Wagon who spent days and days and days organizing the mess that our beloved Andy Gottlieb left behind when he was chair. Mary cleaned it up, and now we know where that money has gone and how much money we have. Secondly, public comment should be listed on every agenda in every public meeting. It should be listed at the beginning of the meeting. You, Karen, are new to this board and to managing this board, why not follow the agenda set by the select board? John Cotton, my new best friend, has public comment at the beginning of every meeting. You should too. That's what happens in democracies. Sorry, we don't have Mary here to manage the board anymore.
Any more public comment? Yes.
Good evening, Lynn Barbie, Surf Drive. This is more like a public service announcement. I was able to go last night to the Housing Production Plan workshop. I'm sure we'll hear more from Evan about it. And he just this evening gave me the hard copy surveys. I really want to urge everyone to either go online or get a hard copy and fill out the survey so that we can really get extensive input for our housing production plan. And while I was there last night, I just want to say a few of us stayed around a little bit later and heard John Cotton talk about his time in Maui. And I said to him at the time, I really want to thank you for representing us there. He and his son spent weeks doing Red Cross work there. And I think we'll be hearing more about it from the newspaper and various places. But it was really very moving, and I really wanted to thank him and tell him I appreciated that he represented our town there. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Anyone else care to speak?
I just have a question.
Give us your name and your address, sir.
Stephen Ferreira, 11 Saxony Drive, Mashpee. I just have a question. I know that the Tudor Terrace project was scuttled till November 1st, but it was read twice. Is there two different changes happening?
One is a special permit, the other is for definitive subdivision. It's just a procedural thing.
There are two separate and distinct proceedings, but they're innately interconnected. So one of the proceedings is relative to a special permit, whereas the board would define unique conditions that are associated to a subdivision. That gets recorded at the Registry of Deeds. And then a subdivision plan would have to be approved under a separate statute to actually divide the lots. So they're separate proceedings, but innately interconnected. You can kind of consider them one and the same, but they have to be listed as separate proceedings.
Okay, is the subdivision plan a revision of the original 1987 subdivision plan?
No,
Is that-
the plan that has been submitted does not impact the northerly Spring Hill West subdivision at all, other than the creation of an extension roadway onto the existing cul-de-sac of Tudor Terrace.
Okay, so I'll defer any comments till the next meeting, I guess.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, that ends public comment. Next item on the agenda is new business. Acknowledgement of Attorney Don Pinto's letter transmitted to Mashpee Town Council pertaining to current applications before the board submitted by Southworth Mashpee Properties LLC, and discussion relative to board member availability to set a special meeting date for an executive session with town council. Okay, we've been talking to town council, Evan and I, and we have set forth some legal issues that the planning board has raised, or they're advocating that we have raised some issues regarding the 1991 special permit of 853 bedrooms. We have discussed that 853 bedrooms as far as density. That's our argument, where they're seeing it as a wastewater capacity. They have a capacity. So that's one of the issues. But this letter is, to my eyes, as a previous lawyer, clearly does insinuate litigation So we're not about to go into anything tonight that could, show our cards how we feel about it. We want to go, and the town council is requesting that we go into executive session to ferret out the issues and figure out what we're going to do. So with that, if you know a date that we're,
Madam Chair, can we have discussion before we talk about starting a date?
discussion about what, Mary?
This is a matter I feel should be discussed during a session when our public hearing is open. This matter of the bedrooms, the applicant has applied for a special permit modification. The letter, which I have read twice and I have not studied, I feel pertains to one, if not all, of the applications that are in front of us, which have been continued. Any discussion about those need to be during the public hearing. That letter needs to be officially submitted to our packet of materials, and I appreciate that it's here today. It needs to be discussed during the time when the public hearing is open. Otherwise, it's an ex parte conversation. I think that at that time, if we want to discuss going into executive session, that's fine. I'm very uncomfortable about going into executive session. I don't believe that this qualifies for it. And I think we should have a robust discussion about that when the public hearing is open.
Okay, well, we are following what the town council is
That's
telling
fine.
us, and I think the town council
I disagree
trumps
with him.
a planning board member.
Nope, absolutely not. He is not a resident. He is not elected to the board. Problems come to this board for discussion, proper processing, and deliberation and decisions. Town council has absolutely no authority over us. Absolutely none. I don't have a letter from him. I have hearsay from him. He cannot tell us to go into executive session. And to tell you the honest truth, I believe that it would be an abuse to go into executive session. I feel very, very, very strongly about this.
Why would we go into executive session?
We
There's been a public hearing on, and the public should know what's going on.
Did you read the letter?
But they're gonna sue us, big
That
deal.
happens all the time.
Let them sue us. I mean, that's just a lawyer's opinion. Yeah, we should go into executive session. But this should be in the public, because we want all the backing we get on this project, or they should. They're just trying to scare us. Just, look,
Yep.
we're big, we have money, we have
And
lawyers.
so what happens with the next special permit that comes to us? They get a letter, they put in a letter saying, we're gonna sue you, and we run into executive session, and that dissolves all local democracy.
Okay,
But
This
here,
public-
the board, nobody on this board can argue against
This-
a legal opinion because we're not lawyers.
This,
And that's what's provided in the letter.
this is public, local democracy. That would mean our decisions were gonna be made behind closed doors,
Yeah.
and I won't be part of
so
that.
if we did want to do executive session, we're gonna come up with a decision without letting the public know what decision
How we
want,
came to that
And they
decision.
can't vote on it? Because once we go into that decision, it's gonna be a signed deal then, I would think. The lawyers
And
would
then the
say,
butter can then challenge us.
yeah.
All this discussion has to be during open session and a public hearing.
And if
If after we close the public hearing, you need advice from town council on how to craft your decision, that's okay. You can close your public hearing except for advice from town council. And if the project proponent sits there and says to us, we're gonna sue you. I mean, I don't know who this person is. He says that he represents them. He's never come before us. And, we've never allowed people to threaten us with this.
With a letter. They should have the decency to come here at one of our meetings and say, here's what we're gonna do because we don't agree the way you're proceeding with this process. They didn't even show up. It's like when you break up with your girlfriend.
Well,
and
what
you
are we
text
going to
her.
do with that letter? If
The
we- if
letter
we had-
goes into the public record of the special permit application during a public hearing.
Okay, so are you
We
going to
can't-
argue, I'm asking you, are we going to argue the legal issues in this letter?
We
No, we
can,
can't.
the project proponent can officially present it to us. We accept all that information. If we have questions and feel like asking, we can. If town council sends us questions, we can acknowledge town council and he can ask questions. If our engineer and our town planner does, fine. But that's the process. And when the board, when the project proponent says, I don't have any more information, and we've asked all our questions, whether we received the information or not, right? We've asked all the questions, we've made reasonable requests, then we can close the public hearing. You can close the public hearing except for conversations with town council. Town council can help you draft the decision after that.
Yeah.
But but if we make a decision that a butter or a person of interest or the project proponent feels they've been slighted in some way, they appeal to a judge. And they appeal to that judge in order to keep the peace in the community. They bring it to the judge. And then the judge decides if we acted properly or not. And that's the legal process that has been going on for what? Decades, at least 70
So
years.
you're saying in the past, you've always had the person, in this case, the author of this letter, come before the board?
This letter, it was dated
July
July
31.
31st. This should have been brought to the board immediately and brought into our record at one of our open sessions. That should have been a correspondence from the project proponent. The project proponent has been asking us to continue. I'm letting everybody know now, the next time this hearing is open, I am submitting my final questions about this matter. Because I'm not going to continue this forever. I'm not going to keep continuing it. It just can't be continued again and again and again and again while I have pending questions on these applications that are not being addressed. And maybe,
Sorry.
that's okay. Maybe we should, go through a little bit about process when. Calling emergency services. How would you ever think something like this would happen? I've never seen anything like this in all my years on the planning board. A project proponent, while an application is open, people are telling me that's a threat to sue. That's threat of litigation. I've never had a project proponent with an open application and an open public hearing threatening to sue the town while we haven't even gotten through the public hearing. We haven't closed the public hearing, we haven't deliberated, we haven't made any comment.
That's it. Mary, that's.
We have abutters coming that are very upset about what's going on in their community. And they're saying, be nice, be sweet, be peaceful. And the applicant is threatening to sue us? I'm not going down the pathway that they want us to go. I'm sticking to what the planning board has always done and what all planning boards do. They deal with this in public session so the public knows, and I can assure everyone that whatever decision we make will be the most advantageous to the town.
Another thing, they don't even know what decision we're gonna make. The public hearing's open. So we could agree to the 12 building, but they're suing us. For what reason? We haven't even given a decision. And the whole problem was, they should have come right at the beginning and said, hey, we got a mistake here. We got too many bedrooms. How can we fix this? Can we change, the special permit to add these bedrooms? Not try to sneak 14 houses in, and they knew how many bedrooms they were over, and not say anything. And then, thank God, Mary found out that the bedroom, hey, look at this. And then they, oh, we didn't know nothing about it. Then they try to blame, it was your fault for not checking on us. It's not our fault for not checking on them. They got a special permit, they gotta follow it. They can't blame somebody else, so.
I'm not going into executive session.
No, I can't believe this lawyer.
I'm not, and town council should know better. He's known me for 15 years. He should know better than to ask me to go into executive session. Pat, I love you, but really?
What do you say,
And
Evan?
you know that lady that was here speaking?
Which lady?
Wendy?
Wendy, she
Yeah.
was not gonna let this fly when she watches us on TV about what's happening.
I mean, we go into executive session? Are you kidding me?
So,
Madam Chair, can I ask a quick question?
Can we
Yes.
not,
Just
can
for
we
clarif-
maintain this to the board members? I mean,
You
we're
have the
having
floor.
a hard
Ed.
time with this already.
So, just for clarification, so, it's the first time I'm reading this letter from Mr. Pinto at Pierce Atwood on behalf of Southworth
Yeah.
Development to town council, not to the planning board,
That's
to
right.
town council. So, it sounds to me like he was explaining the legal position or the argument, and the final paragraph says, our goal is to open a constructive dialogue on these issues. Southworth's management would appreciate it if you would consult with the planning board and get back to us with your thoughts. If you think it would be productive, we're open to a sit-down with council, a representative or two of Southworth, and representatives of the planning board and other interested town officials. I think that would be very helpful. I almost,
But like I
however,
said,
how-
this is still an open,
however,
Wait,
that
you
may
didn't
need
come
to
back
be
here.
in a,
Forget about what you said, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But we continue the special permit. He'll come in here and say, you want to refile the special permit, and then he can do his lawyer then.
Council should have written us a letter.
so have
With
they?
that attached,
has-
which I still haven't seen.
I think it would be good to get something in writing from town council, but I wanted to ask, this meeting they're proposing to avoid litigation, because it says we'd like to, second to last sentence, to discuss these issues and how to resolve them without litigation,
They
okay?
want to avoid it, but this
Right.
is.
But what litigation? I don't see what they have to stand on.
I mean, this is,
So let me
understand
finish,
that.
let me
Wait,
finish.
wait,
I
please
bel-
let Ed
I-
speak.
It sounds to me like that's a great idea, but that may also have to be in public forum. So the question is, how do you get that in the executive session?
is that any
or
different
is that
than what I
feasible?
said?
So.
Right, it has to be in public forum.
I don't know that. That's a question for town council.
That is a question for town council.
So,
Nope, it's a question for us. It's a question for this board.
It
It's-
is.
This application is in front of us. And if town council thinks we are doing something wrong, hey, give us a heads up. But we are acting on this in the same way that we act on every application.
so I'd recommend you speak to town council. I know you have started that. I know you'd speak to town council about how to proceed, because you have a pending action on your agenda in October that's going to need to either have a decision or a continuance.
Yeah,
And-
the issue that has to talk to council is he is stating that we're stopped from making the decision. That's a legal,
How has he
That-
done that?
that's a legal opinion that has to be
Where is
resolved
the
by a
legal
lawyer.
opinion,
That's-
Michael?
And that's not
Michael,
Pat's
where is
opinion. I
it?
need to make
Is
that
it
clear.
not in writing?
That's
This is like
that's their
fifth
opinion,
hand.
not town council's opinion or the board's opinion, but you're right.
That's the only thing I'm saying. We can't negotiate a legal issue here amongst the board. We can talk about it. But if he says you're stopped, that's a legal position that he's taken and it has to be addressed by town council.
But at least
That's
it's
all.
some new
I'm not saying
additional
we don't talk about it,
information
but we can't talk
for,
about estoppel.
Thank you.
I
at
mean, we
least
can't
it's,
talk about estoppel because we're not lawyers.
right, it's still.
I know what it means.
Now I understand your comment, I think.
It is some new and additional information that the board can now use to understand Southworth's opinion, Southworth's position, to help evaluate next steps. That's really all it is.
That's right.
But you need to ask, because it was sent to town council, I think you need some kind of written response from town council on how to proceed.
But what's taking
May I?
town
Yeah,
council so
please,
long?
So I think all of you already know this, but I don't mean to be patronizing, but Mary is right. Town council is making a recommendation here. He can't compel you to do anything. This is a discussion for you to entertain. It is council's position, and I did ask council if he would produce a memorandum to accompany the letter tonight. He felt it was not in the best interest to put anything in writing prior to an executive session. However, he felt that the letter is an imminent threat of litigation and would require, it is his recommendation firmly to enter an executive session, but he cannot compel you to do so.
We're not required.
You are not required. But that was his recommendation, and it is, I'm here just to relay council's recommendation to you.
Well, I've talked to Rodney today about this. I'll be talking to him tomorrow. I will be very clear to him that, that when something like this happens, it needs to have a cover letter and sent to the planning board in our official packet. This was dated July 31st. I don't know where this letter has been, and I'm sure that any activity that was taken on this will be reported out in public to the planning board at our next public hearing that's opened on this.
Well, so we have
But
a request from
this
town
is
council to
so
go into public.
unusual.
We have a request from town council to consider going executive session.
Council is
What do you
advising
wanna
you to
do?
go into executive
I'm
session.
not going into
Well,
executive.
That's the
I think
discussion.
the board needs to respond to it.
That's the decision to be made tonight.
I mean,
Right.
well, we don't have to make it tonight. Why don't we wait for him to put that in writing for us?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
What is his justification for going into executive session? I'd like a
fair.
formal letter from him. Yeah,
So let's motion a formal letter from the council advising us why he thinks we should.
yeah.
that
And
type of thing.
and
Let's-
I want,
let's-
What the
let's take it.
goals are
And
for
we
you to
have got
have
to
in
do
executive
this.
session.
Yeah, let's move on with
the
this.
next time we have a continuance on Willabend, we need to discuss this. They want to keep continuing it, we have to open up the public hearing and discuss town council's letter to us. We have to discuss it during the public hearing.
Okay, so why don't you make a motion, Mary?
I'm
we
not
get-
making a motion. This is, the town council needs to, I can't make a motion to have town council do that.
Well, we can recommend that he do this, that he write this letter.
No, he can watch this and hear me, but I'm not making a motion on this. I am wigged out by this, Karen. This is such unusual process. I do not want to do anything that's going to cause a problem for this board later. When I'm in front of a judge discussing that, I'm not comfortable making a motion.
If it's the consensus of the board, I'd be more than happy to relay to town council your position on the matter and request something in writing relative to his suggestion.
I
I don't
agree.
care whether it's a motion or not, we should ask for something from town council.
Right.
However you want to do it, that's what we should do.
And
Let's
please,
get the next step done.
yeah, and please keep these matters for public hearings. We're going to get in trouble if we're not dealing with these things during a public hearing. Do you know what I mean?
Public hearing's still open.
Karen, do
Pardon
you
me?
want a motion? or you
No,
want
but
to
it's
go
not
forward?
open right now, so.
I would like a motion.
abutters- Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we respond to town council and ask for him to provide us with a letter explaining how this is to be handled from his perspective. It's not gonna tell us we have to do it, but I think we should have that. And I would agree with Mary. July 31st, this is September, it is. There's no excuse for that 90-day delay, for whatever reason.
Any
Second.
second?
That's not part of the motion,
Okay.
it's just a comment.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 I'm going to abstain from that.
Okay. Okay, we have a board engineer report on something here.
Well, that was for Tudor Circle.
Tudor
Tudor Terrace, excuse me, I keep doing
So
that.
we don't want to go into it now, because it's continued.
No, there's really nothing in in my engineering review of Tudor Terrace that was anything they can't handle and respond to. So I don't anticipate, in fact, I anticipate between now and the next hearing, we'll be getting revised plans that I will have to respond to, but we'll take that as it comes.
Sherwin-Williams, you had
Yes.
resolved an issue with Sherwin-Williams?
Yes, so there's a couple of things I can report to the board on. So first of all, in recent weeks, we made a couple inquiries at Sherwin-Williams. There was a drainage issue in their detention pond. There was some washout areas for the two inlets going to the detention pond because the flared end sections didn't have the proper crushed stone riprap pads, splash pads, and the contractor showed up yesterday or today, I guess it was yesterday, to repair those. So sent us pictures today so that can get closed out. So there were some areas that just never got seeded well or didn't take well or both, and then there were some areas that needed to be repaired. Both of those things were taken care of today or yesterday I have pictures of the seed on the ground. I have pictures of the new crushed stone pads, and I suspect everything will be fine and hunky-dory in a couple of weeks. So I was just going to wait a couple of weeks and watch the seed come in. It's not too late in the season, thankfully. The whole reason it didn't work is because they did it too late in the season last year. So
Yeah.
but anyway, so that's that one. Let me move on. I'll save Aquay Highlands for last. Willow Circle. Willow Circle, all the infrastructure, virtually all the infrastructure is in. The binder paving is down. They've been doing some work on the lots, as you have seen, probably driving around. So there's really nothing for me to inspect there. They did do a new stone wall at the entrance. I was concerned about the clearance on the corner, and so they moved the entrance road over a little bit by narrowing the island in the middle of the road. So I'm waiting for that to kind of come to fruition, then I'll inspect that, make sure it's all in good action or in good order. Teal Circle, a very small development, couple of house lots in Willow Bend off of an existing cul-de-sac, had a common driveway with a third home, and we wanted to make sure there was proper fire access. So I went there with the developer, who happens to be the same developer of Willow Circle, and we're able to kind of talk about what needed to be done there. He widened the driveway, the common drive for those two new lots, and we actually had Chief Jack Phelan out there with his deputy, to inspect that paving work several weeks ago. I can't remember how long ago, but it's been a few weeks, and that was adequate and satisfactory. So that's all taken care of. We just talked about Sherwin-Williams. Country Club Estates, there's some continuing infrastructure work, drainage work, and that's being done. Really, that's all. There's no road work being done. It's just slow, steady progress. It's not a real fast effort. They're not trying to build houses this year. They're just trying to extend the road and get that work done. So I actually have to go back out there and do some more inspections as well. Just to make the board aware, I am also doing some engineering peer reviews and construction inspections for the zoning board for a couple of sites of note lately on Evergreen Circle number 40, which is under construction, down next to, a couple doors down next to Cape Cod Coffee. And next to that, same owner, Pastore Construction, is the same owner, 50 Evergreen Circles before the board in a couple of weeks. And it's went before design review yesterday, I want to say.
It was in design review.
Yeah, right.
We continued it.
Oh, they did, okay. So I'm working on that. That will be middle of October, I guess. I'm going to be preparing that review. I went and looked at it. It doesn't look like it's basically not much different than the one at 40 Evergreen. I don't consider there to be any problems. Evan and I have been talking about some other things that are coming up. Perhaps a grocery store chain that might come up on Route 28 in the future. We'll see what happens with that project. It's going through Cape Cod Commission review, right, Evan?
Well, it's the application that has been submitted and refiled. They've reapproached my office with the intention of refiling again. But I've received no applications yet to date.
Are they disclosing what the company is?
No.
And I gotta,
Not without talking to town council. We're not allowed to talk about that. I'm just kidding.
I got a question.
Yes.
With the Country Lane, Kenny Masters property,
Country Club Lane, yes.
the entrance,
The entrance
they
is,
should put some lines. This, you go on this thing to go out, the middle one, I don't know, when you go to the middle one, you can go left, right, oh, what's that one?
we are, Evan and I are both unhappy, I
I'm
think is the
unhappy
best way
with
to
that,
put
I'm
it.
telling you.
We're unhappy with the current status of that entrance and the
Coming
geometry
down,
there.
You don't know which exit do I go into? Do I go into this one? Do I go into the middle one?
You got a truck, Dennis, just boom, boom, boom.
Oh, I
right
just
up
go
granite
in
curves.
there. I go there.
The granite curb makes you pay attention, but it doesn't, it's not that intuitively obvious. So it does need some help. There also is some sight distance, safe sight distance issues that Mr. Marsters agrees. Some of it's not on his property, but it's on Old Barnstable Road there. So there's some things that they agreed to do. It's time, I told Evan, I just haven't harassed them to set up another meeting. It's time for us to set up another meeting in Evan's office.
Ed, how do you make that area safe without reconfiguring the road, that
So
curve?
there's some,
We actually did, when I first started here, the road was redesigned by the former engineer alongside the applicant with the intention of reconfiguring the entrance. They just never built it.
So I
it's our
actually have that
expectation
plan.
that they're going to build it.
I actually have that design plan and everything, and he agreed to do some more land surveying in that intersection so we could determine what's to be done. Mostly it's site clearing to improve the visibility as you approach it coming in from 151.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Oh, really?
Because you can't see coming. Then as you're leaving, if you're a resident of this new subdivision and you're leaving, the folks coming from 151 come around the corner fast enough. You can see on the left side, people coming from the country club side, clubhouse side. You can see that distance okay. It's the other side that's the problem. So we all agree that there's an issue. It just needs, the safety needs to be
Basically,
improved
they'll
there.
put some white lines in to tell those people coming from the development, stop.
Slow down or stop.
No, because I come down that day, I don't know if it's a construction worker or a person lives there. He just come right out, like, didn't know where he was going, and turn. I go slow down there, but I said, imagine some high school kid coming from, getting out of high school, going home. They go 40, 50. The guy didn't even stop, he went right out. It's an accident waiting to happen.
It is. I don't know why there's not more accidents, but it does get your attention when you go down the hill, start turning. You can speed up, and so it's tendency for experienced drivers like us to slow down, but you never know.
Yep.
Moving to the Aquay Highlands site project. We last visited, myself and Evan and Mr. Moran out on the site on the 8th of August after the paving work that was done and was successfully completed. But there were a couple of driveway apron entrances that were not draining properly. And some of the owners were calling the Lawrence Lynch Corporation who did the paving to complain and try to get them to fix it. So we had Representative Jonathan Croft from Lawrence Lynch with us. So the four of us walked the site, came up with an approach to address that. And that involved milling and repaving a little gutter line hump so that the water wouldn't come from the street and go into the driveway and cause driveway issues. There's one particular home and one particular homeowner, Mr. Kornack, as you all heard, number 51, that is probably the worst case on that lot. Mr. Moran agreed to put in an area drain at the end of his driveway to provide some additional drainage. That drain was started yesterday, and I got to see it today, this afternoon before the meeting, and I walked the entire site with him. So first of all, the new drain we put down at the end of the street is working pretty well. Got notification from the new owner at that lot that he sold that it worked pretty well during the recent storms. So he showed me the email from that owner. I looked around the rest of the site. It looks in general good shape. There's some housekeeping of sediment in the road to take care of, but generally speaking, it looked in pretty good shape. And then we moved on to, so first of all, not much else except this small area drain work has started. I said, why haven't you done the paving that you said that we all agreed we were going to do? He goes, well, he sent me a price, and I disagree with the price, so we're arguing about the price. I said, well, make your mind up. Please talk to him. He goes, I promise I'll speak to Lawrence Lynch between now and Friday. We'll work something out. I said, I don't care if we want to meet out here again and talk about the scope of work. I'm happy to do that, but, I have to tell you, Jacques, that's a problem between you and him, you and the contractor. That's not a planning board issue.
Yeah.
Right.
So he agrees. He has no disagreement with that. Then we went back down the street, the unimproved area, the area that is outside the subdivision footprint, and talked about what maintenance can be done there. He has agreed to backfill potholes to reconstruct the hole and backfill it with new gravel material, and to bring up some of the areas that have eroded away so that there's a smooth surface, generally smooth surface, that from gravel to edge of worn paving. So that at least it's back to what it originally was a couple of years ago when it was first put down and they put a crown on that road. So he's going to do his best to put some mix down there, basically some crushed stone, probably asphalt, recycled asphalt mix, not hot mix, but gravel mix.
Like a hard pack or something.
Right, and down and into the low spots to repair some of there's at least 3 potholes that I saw that he has no problem fixing. And then finally, there's swales on a section of the road as you go down the hill towards Great Neck Road. There's swales that he originally built on the left and right, and he brought me pictures of those beautiful swales when he built them. And I said, that looks great, Jacques, let's get that to where they look like this again. So he actually I took pictures, he actually swept some of the leaves off, like I'd asked him to, and we found the remnants of the old crushed stone. I said, I need you to make a swale here again, like you had before, put down some new stone, dress it up. I said, all you need to do now is come in with a narrow bucket, a 12-inch bucket, make a swale, and fill it with stone and make it function like it should. Just it filled in and, it eroded over 3 or 4 years, however long it's been. I said, and then you're doing some maintenance to the road, that combined with the pothole repair and some of the gravel finish, then I think I could justify to the board that you're doing your part to maintain the road. And I said, how much time do you need to do that? He said, 60 days. I said, great. Why don't we do this? I'll recommend to the board that I report back in 60 days. So, Madam Chair, I'd like to say, here it is, the middle of September. You have a meeting on the 1st of November. What's your next meeting after that?
The 19th, I think.
The 19th?
I'm not sure.
The 15th. October, November 1, November 15.
Oh, November 15th.
November 15th. So I could say on the 15th, by the 15th, maybe sooner than that. I prefer by November 1st, but here's September 15th, so that's 60 days. By November 15th, I provide you something in writing with photos on the update on the status of that. Mr. Moran is motivated to try to resolve all these things so he can close the tripartite agreement out. I told him I needed to finally walk the site, that areas that I told him to reseed and to take care of and make sure it's in stable. I ran out of time. I was out there for 45 minutes with him. I ran out of time because I had to get here. But I said, I got to come back anyway when you're going to put this driveway work in. Get this driveway work in. Let's have a site meeting if you want. Let's get it done.
Okay, so what is the understanding that he does this time? Does he do it again next year?
No.
Or is it a one-time deal and then it goes over to the HOA's responsibility?
I think that's what it is.
Go ahead, Evan.
I just want to remind the board that, this discussion is generally in response to a letter from a Blue Castle Drive resident seeking an opinion from the board relative to their developer's compliance with this particular provision. And I think I'm happy to hear that Jacques is motivated to rectify the issue. I just want to again restate my opinion that I don't believe the developer has complied with this particular condition. And I'm happy that there are steps outlined by our consulting engineer to resolve the issue. But also in consideration of responding to the letter, I would like to provide, or like to have something in writing outlining the existing condition, as well as the expected steps to achieve compliance, as well as the board's opinion relative to an interpretation as to when his obligation for maintenance ends, because it's not forever. The Aquay Highlands Homeowners Association, by condition in the permit, will assume the maintenance responsibility unless modified by this board subsequent to an application. So is that at the completion of the final home in the subdivision? When is that going to occur? Because ultimately, the maintenance obligation is an annual requirement that will be either on JOC or a homeowners association in perpetuity, again, unless it's modified. So if the board is agreeable, I would like to get these recommendations in writing so that we can, the board could consider taking a vote on the compliance with this particular condition and make clear in writing the expectations for achieving compliance if you find it is out of compliance.
I think we have to. It's been too long waiting for things to get done. I mean, I think we have to put a line in the sand and explain what has to happen and our expectation.
I mean, I think
That's too long.
my understanding of what is, the roadway condition of that portion of Blue Castle Drive has never been perfect and it will remain imperfect. The purpose of the condition is to ensure it's in its best possible condition to the benefit of the new residents and the people along Blue Castle Drive, but also to ensure adequate access for public safety vehicles.
Right.
So
And
it's
so
supposed to
if,
be maintained
so that's right. With,
until the development is complete. And then the homeowners association is supposed to take it over.
Is that what is customarily done here?
well, I mean, Blue
I know
Castle,
that
this particular subdivision is relatively unique.
Yeah, it is, but
It
the
is
road-
relatively unique. But based on Ed's assessment, I think of the grading requirements and the swales, if the maintenance is done annually, this isn't a big job. I think one thing that, I think the new residents as well as the legacy residents of Blue Castle Drive need to understand is that absent milling of the existing broken up pavement and repaving that entire road, the road is going to continue to have issues if the maintenance is not performed.
Yeah, right.
And that's a reality.
Well, it has to be done annually. The question is, when does his obligation cease?
So he'd like to make the case that after he makes these repairs, that he would like to cease he's installed all the infrastructure, he's made the final paving, and beyond the need for a final as-built, which I don't know whether we argued that or not with him, but typically would like an as-built plan. But beyond that, he has 3 house lots that he has not built yet. Starts on the previous page. He doesn't want them held hostage to ending his obligation. So he would like to do this work, declare it done, have me do the inspection, confirm that, and then declare that
The obligations for the HOA?
that his work is substantially complete, and then the HOA would then take over.
So he's talking about doing it one time, bringing it back to its original, when it was originally done,
Correct.
cleaned up and
So
fixed.
the language of this particular condition identifies that the maintenance will be performed at the expense of the applicant or the proposed association once it is established. The
It is-
developer is going to argue that the association has been established and thus his obligation will defer to them. I think the language in the permit is relatively clear. That seems to be the case. But it is, in my opinion, not appropriate to defer that obligation onto the association when the maintenance obligation has
hasn't
not
met
been
it.
met annually.
Yeah.
So I don't think we, based on the language of the permit, can argue, if indeed the Aqua Highlands Homeowner Association is established, it is technically their obligation to maintain. But they shouldn't be required to assume that obligation now in the condition that it's in.
Agreed.
So I'd like him to get some repairs done, Madam Chair, to do the things that we talked about and that he now has agreed to. He notionally, he did essentially agree to that earlier this summer. I just want him to get that done and push him to get it done. He agrees that, I asked him for the timeframe. I said, do you want to extend the tripartite agreement for 2 years while you build your other houses? He goes, no, I want to get it done now, and I don't want the houses, I may not build in those lots for a while. The infrastructure's in, that shouldn't be held accountable, held to prevent me from releasing the rest of the subdivision. I said, yes, you're right, unless that's something you want to do.
Is the HOA,
Is it
the
established?
president agreeable to take over if he does?
So I think the
road.
HOA and Mr. Moran are at odds over this issue. I think.
Is there an HOA?
There is an HOA established, and residents have been invited to participate and to nominate officers to the HOA. Many residents on Blue Castle Drive are resistant to participating in the HOA as a result of this issue. And so this matter relative to the HOA and their obligations and the permit, slightly outside of my area of expertise. However, I don't think it's arguable that the responsibility will fall unto them, but there's going to be an issue if the HOA refuses to participate in the maintenance, but the obligation technically ends in consideration of the language of the permit. So I think it is our number one goal right now, or what our number one focus should be, is to get the condition of that portion of Blue Castle Drive 100% consistent with the detail as shown on the plan, so that the developer and the neighborhood can entertain appropriate discussions to determine how best to achieve compliance with the permit. And if that means, if they decide that the HOA will assume it and they understand their obligations, great. If it means they want to approach the board and request a modification and have a proposal, that's fine too. But ultimately, they need to understand who's going to do what in consideration of the current obligation. Otherwise, they need to request to modify it if they can't come to an agreement.
So I've never voted on a project saying it's complete. I don't know if that's within our jurisdiction. I think that if there was a request to modify this decision, then we can say, okay, have you finished this, and this? But for us to, if Jack wrote us a letter saying, we'd like you to declare this complete.
Mr. Moran, you mean?
Mr. Moran.
Right.
Then I'm kind of like, I don't know if we have the authority to say, yes, it's complete, and it triggers other things happening.
It's similar to you accepting full completion and signing off for release of the covenant of a subdivision. It's very similar. In this case, you don't have a covenant.
Okay, why don't?
You have a tripartite
It was
agreement.
released for the agreement. Now, I think it's important to remember that there's
The tripartite
a,
agreement is active right now?
well, the tripartite is still your form of security. Now, the subdivision and the special permit are two separate and distinct issues. The maintenance obligation defined in the permit is not secured with cash in the tripartite agreement.
Not, no.
That is a zoning-related issue that we can enforce through the zoning bylaw. But the obligations that the developer is required to meet under the subdivision approval have been met, with one exception. If you recall, there's a requirement for the installation of a sidewalk that the neighborhood has expressed an interest in modifying. So
That's true.
That's,
You're willing.
that is your
Forgot
form
about
of
that.
security for
Right.
that completion of that sidewalk remains your tripartite agreement.
So it's not complete.
So that the sidewalk, until modified, needs to be
So
installed.
it's not complete, he has to maintain the road until that sidewalk is complete.
But if the
Or-
owners don't want the sidewalk,
Or the
They sign off on it.
decision
Has to be modified.
is modified.
Yeah.
That's it.
Is that
That's
the,
it, right there.
yeah.
So it's not complete because there's a lingering condition he hasn't met, and it's the sidewalk. If he wants to remove the sidewalk, right?
He's got to request it.
He has to formally apply for a special permit modification. So I'm saying this is not complete because he still has a condition he has not met. That's
so
it.
if it's not completed next year,
He
he
has
has
to
to
keep
do the road and
maintaining the road.
maintain till this has been completed and modified, meaning modified.
Unfortunately, I'm not gonna take substantially complete as complete in this case. Because there is a sidewalk. It's not like he's, 99%. Right.
Ed, what are we talking about in terms of a ballpark for a sidewalk of that length?
Well, there's a fixed amount of money secured in the tripartite agreement. I can't recall what the value is, but it's not insubstantial.
It's not all that much.
How much?
Oh,
It's
tens
one-
of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it's 1.5 times the total number.
Built
I
two
don't know what it
sidewalks.
is. I might even have it here. I don't know. You might have given it to me. But what I suggested, because this is a little bit complex, because there's a number of things to maintain, or to make sure we maintain properly, that we put an interim solution together, and that is to report back to you status in 60 days, on the 15th,
Yeah.
And that's the maintenance.
15th of November. That is on the status of everything. I will remind him, and he no doubt is watching or will be watching a recording of this meeting. I'll remind him that I'll remind him of what we discussed in writing. I'll make sure I CC Evan. I'll remind him to delete the sidewalk. That's because something I forgot about, that he asked us about, and that I think the board would be amenable about if the
Well, we'll
community
have
is
to
amenable
see.
to that.
If the HOA doesn't want it,
But if they don't
We will
really,
agree.
I would think the board would want some support from the residents
Yes.
to say that, right? But
And
that's,
then-
if he doesn't
and
want
then-
to do that, he's got to get the board's approval for a modification. I don't know if it's a modification of special permit or the subdivision, but that's a good question.
I believe it would be the definitive.
The definitive plan, the definitive subdivision only, right?
Yes.
Okay, so.
You could consider it a
this-
minor
all right,
modification,
so
too.
I was trying to weasel in what the homeowners wanted to change in the special permit, but that's not gonna do it with the sidewalk coming out.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think so, unless there's a condition. I mean, the requirement of a sidewalk is a requirement of your subdivision rules and regulations, and it's shown on the definitive plan sheet. So if they want to remove the sidewalk, we'd have to modify the definitive, and then also, if they want to discuss the condition with you relative to maintenance, that would have to be a separate special permit modification application. So what I would hope the board would discuss tonight and might be able to offer is an opinion relative to the current condition of the unimproved portion of the roadway. That's what the neighbors have asked for. Does the board find that the current condition of this portion of Blue Castle Drive meets the requirements, the maintenance requirements as outlined in the permit? The neighborhood has asked for your position on that matter. And if there's a willingness to make a motion in that regard, I would love to be able to relay what you've decided to the neighborhood alongside Ed's recommendations to resolve the challenge, with an open invitation to submit the requisite modifications that they may be hopeful for thereafter.
We won't know that until 60 days from now, right?
Yeah. I think that what I'd rather do is have our professional engineer respond to that question. If he feels that work is done, then we can accept his report.
No, that's what I was hoping to have accomplished tonight.
So tonight,
Is
I
there
can.
a written report that we can accept?
No, you can accept the verbal report that it's not the current standard. He's not met his obligation. He's agreed on a get well plan, on a resolution of that. And in 60 days, he has promised to have it done. So I said, okay, I'll go back to the board and say, this is our agreement, this is our verbal agreement. I'll send him an email, follow up. I think that's always better, so there's no confusion. And say that in 60 days, we get a report back. I'd like to report back to the board on what the status of that
So
is.
we can't vote that it's complete because our engineer is telling us it's.
Oh, I'm not seeking
okay. All
a
right.
motion or a vote about completion.
Okay.
Just seeking a decision relative, or now that Ed's made a verbal report to the board.
Yep, I'm sorry.
Seeking a finding by the board or some sort of consensus relative to the compliance with that condition. So now that Ed's reported that it's his opinion that the maintenance obligations have not been met,
Okay.
does the board accept that recommendation?
yes.
Yeah.
I think we do.
And Madam Chair, I assume, and I'll ask you and the members.
Wait, can I ask, why do they want this?
I think that's unclear. I think the letter from,
You don't want to go there.
yeah, I don't recall.
I'm telling you, we want to wait until it's complete and then accept the report from the engineer that it's complete. We do not want to step into something where something's not complete and we're saying it's not complete. That opens up a can of worms. That's gonna, if there's a party that's looking to start litigation against another party, we are gonna get sucked into that. Not saying that that's gonna happen, it's just opening up our liability. We don't have anything on letterhead signed by our engineer. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, because I know you were out there today. But we can accept his report, but
we can't say that something is not complete because people are working on it. That makes it seem like somebody has failed in their duty and an obligation.
I would argue that they have.
That's good. As town planner, you can put that in a letter and sign it.
I'll do
I'm
it.
not willing to do that as a planning board member.
Understood. I'll do
Unless
that.
there's a report, we can say, yes, we accept this report. This report, we asked for, we accept it. But to say that, oh, that project's not complete and vote on it is just opening up a lot of doors. I'd rather wait until Ed gives us something in writing that we accept, or when it's complete, we accept the report that it's completed.
Because I guess I
Oh, no, this is-
interpret the report as simply saying that it is not complete, and we'll go back in 60 days, so we should accept the fact that's what he said, that's it, that's all.
May I revise my statement to include written report? It's,
So I don't think it matters. You can be held accountable for either one, my written report or my verbal
It's on- it's
report.
on-
You
it's on
can,
the
you can
tape.
take action on either one. I can only say that this is no different than my previous testimony at public hearings, that he has not met his obligation, he's agreed to do other things. I reported this before. He has done some of what I asked him to do, but not all of what I asked him to do. And I said, if you want this to go away, you want to solve this and try to get this to a resolution, you got to take action on these swales. You got to make them look right. And that's what I'm asking you to do. You put them in correctly. He gave me all these great pictures of when he did it, all right? And it looks good. I mean, I'm happy to give one for the record here to Evan. I just said, now it's time to go and reestablish them. Dig them out, dig all the sediment out, put back new stones,
I'm not challenging
swale
what
them.
you've done, what you've reported,
Right,
right? What I'm saying is to take a vote at the request of the people that are in this development, to publicly state that this project is not complete, it's just giving me pause. I don't understand why they need it. I've asked why do they need it. I haven't been told. We've been keeping our engineer going. We have a 60-day period. I think we should wait for that 60-day period to be over.
Yeah, I mean, I think they want to know it's not complete, because they're not going to make a decision to work with the guy until
Well,
it is.
I think the permit clearly outlines an obligation that they have, and that they're in a disagreement over who's going to do what. The developer will say, I've done this. The neighbor said, well, no, you haven't. It's your permit.
It's our permit, but it's starting to feel, to me, like a civil matter. You know, like, there's only so much I'm so happy that
It's gone way too far.
I mean, I'm so happy they came in here. I'm so happy that we've helped resolve some things, we identified some other things. I don't want to dissuade any neighborhood from coming in and talking to us.
So
It's going into a realm that I'm not comfortable
I guess I
with.
just want to say that the request from the residents is one thing. My report to you is a whole different thing.
Right.
Right.
My report to you talks about what progress we've made and what progress we intend to finish, or he intends to finish, Mr. Moore intends to finish in 60 days. And I'll report back to you either before that or by that day, so that you can make an informed decision at that time.
Yeah, and that's part of the record.
Fair enough?
period. Right.
Okay. Fair enough.
We have a motion?
I don't think you need it.
You don't need a motion.
We don't.
There is a report. We don't need
Based
it.
on that, I don't think you
Yeah.
need one. I'll relay what I can to
All right, let's move on.
parties of
Okay.
interest.
No report on water quality. So we left off with, we finished with preservation, design review. We had a couple of things this time. We had we interviewed a potential new member for design review. Her name is Carolyn Zarlin. She has a background in landscaping and design. She works for her son's business, which is Clipper Landscaping. And we filled out the form and we followed the policy recommendation. Strongly recommended. She seems like she has the time and definitely the interest. So it was unanimous, highly recommended. Next thing we did was look at Sea Witch, which is a tattoo parlor, and they're using purple. Evan, have you seen this?
No.
Yes.
Show Dennis.
It's, pardon me?
Show Dennis.
It's called Sea Witch Tattoo. It'll be where Polar Cave is, a couple doors over.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, there was some issue about the color of Polar Cave, and now this is starting to look like possibly
I was gonna say-
Las Vegas.
It was gonna match
Do we
like
recommend
Paula.
on a planning board tattoo, we all can just put on
But this was their first drawing,
Yes,
where
sir.
this part of
Oh.
it, the upper part,
On your
goes above the roof, and that violates the sign bylaw. So David Morris had them redo it so that it's just basically a strip above the window. You can't go above the roof line. And then that piece goes on the side.
Oh,
So
okay.
we approved it, because it was less than 20 feet. Or was it 20 feet, right? Is that what it is? Can't be more than 20 feet. You don't need a special permit.
Well, on a wall sign, it is 10% of the overall.
10%, right.
Area of the facade.
Yeah, so that was approved. The next one was 50 Evergreen Circle, Ed, and that's to build a 9,000, under 10,000 square foot
Contractor bay.
contractor bay,
building.
which, I don't know how many contractor bays this town needs, but obviously they need them, because they keep building them. There was an issue, and I don't know what happened in plan review. Did they show up at plan review?
Yes.
Yeah, the issue for us was the layout plan, one of them, the first layout plan showed 6 bays, and another one showed 8 bays. So we got confused, we didn't see any landscaping, and we said, come back again, we'll continue it. That's what happened.
Marion Romero told me that.
Yeah,
Yep.
so that was it,
Plan review?
yeah.
Plan review reviewed 50 Evergreen Circle. We noted the same discrepancy between the plans, however, didn't find it to be a major issue. The only thing that the delineation of the number of condominiums would impact would be the wastewater design flow for the septic system. So we did approve with conditions, notably that they reconcile the number of the condominium units with what is intended and ensure that the septic system is adequately designed to handle the flows for the number of employees for each bay. This parcel is also directly contiguous with the open space parcel that was deeded to the Conservation Commission pursuant to the subdivision approval. We asked that the portion of the site that is to be developed include a split rail fence along the property line with signage to denote that there's an open space parcel abutting to not disturb, as well as the establishment of appropriate survey monuments with signage noting the open space parcel as well. There's also a significant portion of the site that is already cleared and unimproved, so it's just sand now. We ask that they spread an appropriate amount of material and reseed during construction and post-certificate of occupancy, so that it's just not a sand pit to the rear. And any other conditions? No, that's generally it.
Are you saying that each one of those bays is a condominium?
Yeah, they could be rented, they could be sold, but generally, the model in Mashpee has been the development of numerous contractor bays and then condominiumized and sold to contractors.
I never heard of that. We don't have that in Florida.
Yeah. Not all of them, but many.
Okay. Environmental oversight, we don't know. He's not here. Historic District
No,
Commission,
I think that environmental oversight has a new member,
I think they do,
Yes.
yeah.
Ann Malone.
Yep.
yes.
And then I think Alex Zolo from the Concom met with them and may be interested in, I forget if they they did a formal interview or not. So, yeah, that's the news I know for that.
Historic,
No meeting.
no meeting.
And then I'd like to add charter review. Maybe we can add that to the agenda.
Sure.
But, so the charter review has gone through its first pass of the charter. Stephanie Coleman, who works in the town manager's office, has become our recording secretary and does work on the charter, and has redlined it. It's done a tremendous job. She took all our minutes and all our comments and put them in the charter. So you can read the charter and see the things that we pinpointed as possible improvements. David Whedon had brought up the request to add a preamble to the charter, and there was a vote. The charter committee has voted, yes, we are going to add a preamble. And David had, he's one of the representatives from the select board, he provided some drafts. There's 2 versions, I hope you have one. Okay, and some justification. So he is a historic officer for the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe, and he writes beautifully, so I'm hoping that we can maintain as much of his text as possible.
So we have 2 choices here, Mary?
Yeah, there's 2 different ones.
Yeah, and he says he
They're
has
similar.
a third, so we'll wait to see what bubbles up to the top, but, he thought it was important to introduce the different types of government that have been on this land, leading up to the charter. Because that's the governmental structure that now is on this. We talked about the difference between a preamble and a land acknowledgement. A lot of people assumed that the preamble was going to be a land acknowledgement, and that's a different thing. So we're going to have, we were hoping that by the end of the year, we go through what we have in front of us, and we start to have more public hearings. The one thing in our red line charter, we haven't incorporated all of the wonderful public comments we've received to date. We've just dealt with our comments from the review committee. So that's the next thing, is where people have said different things, where would that fit in the charter? That's my report.
Okay. Anything else? Any,
Housing production plan, tomorrow, 5 o'clock, virtual meeting.
Yes, and also just to note, we did hold our first workshop in person last night. I was pleased with the turnout. I saw new faces. And just one takeaway for me was that I think the participation, the population, the group of people who were there really represented the interesting dichotomy of I think, Mashpee residents, Cape residents in general. Many happy, stably housed, civically minded individuals, but also many unstably housed residents of Mashpee who recognize the incredible assets this community has that does not want to leave. So I think there was really interesting discussion at each of the tables, so I was thankful to see some new faces.
How many people do you think were there?
About 35.
35, I was gonna say, oh, because Dennis was there, Karen
Yeah,
was there.
I'd say about 35.
Lynn
And
was there?
we did get, the word out pretty well. All the flyers went home in backpacks. I found that to be relatively effective.
Great.
So I'm hopeful for good participation tomorrow night at a virtual workshop. For anyone interested in seeing the project page, if you go on the planning department's webpage, and on the blue tabs on the left side of the webpage, there is a tab called Community Engagement and Education, where I'm maintaining a few different pages, one for 209 Old Barnstable Road, affordable housing, the housing production plan, and a few other items. That is where you'll find the project page, but the links are also included on the flyer and in all of the correspondence we've sent out to date. So again, tomorrow night at 5 p.m. via Zoom. It'll be a general reiteration of what we conducted last night, but we're hopeful for even more participation, so.
Can we get the PowerPoint
Yeah,
documents?
we'll make sure that that ends up on the project page.
Thank you. Okay, well, I take a motion to
You make a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn?
Second.
I made a
All those in
motion at that
favor?
meeting last night to adjourn.
Yeah, that was good.
It's your MO.
All those in favor?